Show me, show me.
In our work, you see so little progress,
Right.
After so much work.
Yeah.
But to see in that moment that now Venkatesh can read and this skill is going to be with him for his entire life. We spoke with some parents and we asked them, what were you expecting today? And they're like, my child, I have other children who've gone through education, they've studied, so I was expecting I'll come in, there'll be some model. And I walk in and my child is speaking in English. My child, and she's like, I was standing on the side and I saw my child explain to another parent what he had learned, right? The pride that was in her eyes. And she's like, I now know what good learning looks like. Our job is not to just tell the children of the past and the glory there, but to make them feel the glory of the present. To tell them that it's not that just that India was the golden bird of the past, but you are the golden bird of the present and the future. The larger persistence towards the vision, towards the cause, through those dark days,
Right.
I think that is a very difficult quality, and I feel grateful to have in some way lived it, but I feel very, very privileged to have a team that lives it every day.
So, Gaurav, tell me this first. Now, 321, you started 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Here we are 8 years later. What was your vision then for this organization, and how has that changed today?
The larger vision has remained the same.
Yeah.
The manifestation has changed. The way I thought it would play out, that's definitely changed, right? So we knew that the education sector in our country is not working as it should, right? If you are someone from a middle class or rich background, you're able to go to a decent school, you're able to get a good education, and you're set on your life path, right? There are many things we can improve about that, but largely your potential is getting a chance to be honed and for you to shine.
Correct.
For children from low-income backgrounds, that does not happen, right? Forget the potential being refined. They are not able to even learn the most basic of things, right? And it's something that most of the country is unaware of, right? Barely 30% of children in class 3 can read a paragraph and make sense of it, right? Can do 23 minus 17, right? Very fundamental skills, right? And when you zoom that all the way out, you end up with a skilling problem that we had. You end up with there are jobs where not skilled enough people, right? There are where most of our graduates are not employable, right? Those problems don't start there. They start when in the early years, children don't pick up the foundation of thinking, speaking, math. So we said we will set up our own school, which will become a center of excellence, and then hopefully over the years set up many more schools, 100 odd schools over 15, 20 years.
Correct.
I think that larger aim has remained the same. What's changed is over the last few years, we realized that a much more feasible way for us to do this is instead of setting up our own schools, there are so many schools already there, right? Working with children from the backgrounds that we want to empower, why don't we just help them get better? So basically, we shifted our model a few years ago where instead of running our own schools, we work with existing schools working with children from poor backgrounds. We work with the teachers, we work with the principal, we work with the parents, we give them curriculum, we give them training, we give them coaching. So a whole suite of things that we're giving in our own school, but to schools that are not our own, that are already running, that are already there, but where the learning and the quality is not where it should be, and we work to empower them. The advantage of that has been that we wanted to be working in about 100 schools in 20 years. We're in more than 100 schools in 8 years, right? And we're able to scale much faster, but we're able to also empower an existing system in a much more meaningful way.
But Gaurav, when you're working with existing schools, you're working with teachers, you're providing them with resources. How are you measuring your Sure.
For us, there's a very sort of deep quantitative measurement and there's much more sort of qualitative one. It's a quantitative one, very technically, is in every school we enter. Before we start doing anything, we'll go and, let's say, assess the class 2, class 3 children. When they're finishing those classes, right? So we see, okay, in this school that we have not worked, where is a typical child finishing in class 2, right? We'll give them what a class 2 child should be able to do, 23 minus 17, and see how many children can do it. For example, last year when we did the assessment, in the schools we were working with, before us, a typical child, when they finish class 2, in a classroom, barely 20% children could do this. Then we start our work, we do for 1 year, and then we get another external third party to do the assessment. And they showed within 1 year that number jumped to 60%. So in that same school, same teachers, same environment, one batch which did not go through us, barely 20% children could do it. The next batch, so that batch becomes what's called the historical control. And then we're able to show that with our intervention, that number jumps dramatically in just 1 year, right? 2 years later, it increases more and so on, right? So the qualitative measure, really, and you know, we're having this learning exhibition in the school right now where we're sitting, right? These are first grade, second grade students, right, with which they're telling their learning or what they've done. The pride with which teachers are walking around and explaining to parents why they've taught the children this way. And they're explaining why they've not taught them learn by rote. How are children reasoning? And we spoke with some parents and we asked them, you know, what were you expecting today? And they're like, you know, my child, I have other children who've gone through education, they've studied, so I was expecting I'll come in, there'll be some model. And I walk in and my child is speaking English. My child, and she's like, I was standing on the side and I saw my child explain to another parent what he had learned, right? The pride that was in her eyes. And she was like, I now know what good learning looks like. She's like, I never studied, but I can see it.
Right.
And these measures, you know, we really see it in people's eyes. And they're equally important for us. So it matters for us that quantitative measure of how many more children are learning, and the measure is very critical, but also how does this child walk out after a day of learning, right? What a teacher feels when they wake up every day and go to school, and what a parent feels like when they pick up their child from school and saying, wow, all my effort in putting my child through education is worth it.
You've always talked about your Sone ki Chidiya philosophy. Tell me a little bit about that. And do you still believe in that as much as you did a decade ago?
You know, as a child, I was told the story, like all children, that, you know, India was Sone ki Chidiya, right? Sone, right? Where there was prosperity, there was glory. And I used to always find that story fascinating, right? My mother used to tell me often every night. And what fascinated me was the point that it was always in the past.
Yeah.
Right? All the glory, the prosperity. And it seemed like our good days were behind us.
Sure.
And for such a young country, that doesn't make any sense. And so as much as I would be inspired by that story, I think a driving force was, how do we make it happen now? For me, the golden bird is now representative of the potential of the child.
Sure.
Right? That it exists in everyone. And that our job is not to just tell the children of the past and the glory there, but to make them feel the glory of the present. To tell them that it's not that just that India was the golden bird of the past, but you are the golden bird of the present and the future. And so in that way, it continues to sort of drive me, drive the team, all our work. For different people, it represents the potential of a teacher. For somebody, it represents the potential of a school. But for all of us, it's about there is beauty, there's glory, there's wisdom, there's potential in all of us.
Yeah.
And all we're trying to do is just give a way for that to be unleashed.
Yeah. But Gaurav, you know, in a country like ours, all the problems seem never ending.
Yeah.
Just because of the sheer population. How do you retain your sense of possibility? How do you keep going?
Sure. I think that's a question that actually gets asked a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I feel the fatigue, I feel the tired of that. But I think for me, really, it comes down to two things. All through my life, right, in my teenage years, in my early 20s, what I was looking for was a sense of purpose.
Sure.
The issue was I didn't know that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Right? The tragedy of life is that you develop the vocabulary to talk about something only after you found it. And I only got the ability to explain it once I found it. When I started teaching, when I started working with teachers and children, I'm like, oh, this is what I was looking for. A sense of impacting something much bigger than me. So, you know, the problems seem very daunting. And they seem like that we might never be able to solve them.
Yeah.
Right? The trick is, can you somehow make peace with that while still in no way diminish your effort and continue that for a long time? And for me, I think the understanding that came in my teenage years when I was a lost kid. I spent a lot of time reading philosophy, poetry.
Sure.
And a poem that spoke a lot to me was this poem called "Oh Me, Oh Life." And it's all about basically this child, this person sort of going around confused through life and figuring out what's the point of it all. Like, it's all going to remain like this, right? Why should I even care? And the last stanza really brings it home, where it's almost like some wise person speaking to that child. And I felt like that was someone speaking to me.
Yeah.
And they said, because life exists, because you exist, and that the powerful play goes on, and you may add a verse. And for me, that's how it's always been. Right? This play has been going on way before any of us, and it'll go on way after any of us, right? Now, we can't alter everything, we can't change everything, right? And we have to understand that and make peace with that. However, that doesn't mean we are meaningless. That doesn't mean we are insignificant. It does mean that we can add our own verse to this beautiful play that's been going on before us, right?
Sure.
And when our time is done, we will move on and somebody else will come and add their verse.
Gaurav, see, everything looks very larger than life, right? 100 schools and massive impact. For an ordinary person sitting at home, our show is all about ordinary people being extraordinary.
Sure.
What can an ordinary person from a privileged background do sitting at home to work towards living an extraordinary life?
Sure. So why did I get into doing this work, right? And I had no idea, right? I had no clue what to do, how to do, what path to take, what process. The one thing that kept sort of coming back to me was the simple concept that if my home is dirty, how long can I wait for someone else to come and clean it? Right? Ultimately, I have to pick up the broom and do something about it. Believing that you can and that you should. If you care about this, right? This is yours, you can do something. That's first point. Second is, I would say people should look for what moves them in a certain way, right? Almost in some ways, start by following your emotion. What gives you meaning, what makes you passionate, right? Now, it was education for me, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
I accidentally landed in education and then realized that I got a lot of joy from it.
Right.
And so maybe you have to just try a few different things, right?
Right.
But basically, wherever you come back from having done any contribution, could be volunteering, and it makes you feel come alive, right? That was the sign for me, right? I would come back from the classroom exhausted, and I felt more alive than I'd felt in a decade.
Right.
And to try by seeing that, it could be climate, it could be women, it could be children, it could be space, it could be anything that you feel some emotion towards and you want to do your bit to making it better. Forget the scale, that is just a consequence of journey and time. Start by an action that you feel authentic about a cause that means something to you, and just do as best as you can. Rest, the path will take care of itself.
So scale aside, Gaurav, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
I spent a lot of time, working on building the organization as much as what we were doing program, right? So the team, right? We have ridiculous retention. We retain people for like every year retention is 90+%, right? We have the people who joined us 8 years ago and they're still there, right? And so for me, really the long-term thing is like what I always envisioned when I started 321 was 25 years from now, we'd all look back and say, wow, we had a lot of impact. And wow, what an incredible journey. We had so much fun. We loved the people we walked with. We feel so privileged to have spent these hours with each other doing what we did.
Yeah.
So now, there are targets, there are numbers, there are plans.
Right.
But that's not what brings the meaning. Right? What I wish to keep doing is keep working with the incredible people that we work with, right? Keep impacting the students and teachers, right? It could be 100 schools, it could be 5,000 schools. It could be across India, it could be across the world, right? It might take different forms.
Yeah.
But as long as I feel I'm able to contribute to make something better,
Right.
I get to learn something every day, and I get inspired by the people around me. That's all I want.
Yeah. Gaurav, when you reflect back on your journey, I know there's been many, but what has been that one most magical moment that you look back on and that inspires you?
So one of the problems we have as a country is that children from poor backgrounds, they struggle to learn to read, right? Because parents are not reading the language at home. Sure. English is the language that they all want to learn.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to learn to read and speak. And without that, their job opportunities, their confidence, a lot of those things take a debt, right? Now, people don't realize it, but teaching a child to learn to speak and read the language they don't know is a very, very difficult thing, right? And it's something that has been a debate of neuroscience for 30 years, educational debate. And I think it's a random memory, but I remember walking into one of these classrooms. We were doing it in a hall because we didn't have space. And there was this new program that we've been trying for some time, working with children. And I walk into the classroom and about 40 children are sitting, all independently reading. And I just sit next to them, one of them, and I remember this child called Venkatesh, right? And I remember him well because it was his second year. And he spent the whole of first year just crying, running around wherever, or in my lap, because I was the only person who could calm him down. So he would basically, when the teacher would get tired, they're like, Gaurav, handle him. I was the principal at that time.
Yeah.
And you could not get him to sit or pay attention. And I sat next to Venkatesh, and he was reading fluently, and he looks at me, and he explains to me what he read.
Oh.
And after all these years, I still get goosebumps when I talk about it. For me, and you know what people don't understand is that in our work, you see so little progress,
Right.
After so much work.
Yeah.
But to see in that moment that now Venkatesh can read, and this skill is going to be with him for his entire life. Now, I didn't have that great teachers and mentors, and books are what saved me. And to know that now he has that. whatever happens in life, he can read, he can access everything, and he can build it on his own. And the joy he got from that story, that just stays with me. And I think having now being able to dunk, we had about 300 students in our school. We now work with almost 10,000 students.
Right.
To be able to see, and that's what we were seeing today in today's exhibition. Right? The students were reading, and that for me always, the confidence and the joy in their face when I know what this means. That stays with me always.
Yes, it was interesting. Our camera crew was in the classrooms, and the second they saw the camera, they were ready to present. Not knowing how many hundreds and thousands of people are going to be watching. So it was quite much.
And if you came to the school 5 months ago, this was not what was happening.
Sure.
The children couldn't read, they didn't have the confidence.
Sure.
So we worked very hard. The teachers of the school have worked very hard. And the students, of course, have worked very hard. But that's the result you want to see, that confidence, that smile.
Yeah. Gaurav, in conclusion, dropping your humility for a second, what is that one quality in you that makes you a change maker? That one unique quality?
I'm starting to realize more and more, it's persistence.
Okay.
And it's not just me, it's our whole team, by the way.
Sure. Right.
We just didn't give up.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, if you care about change, what you remember is it is a small sliver that happened at the end. And it takes a big price.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to pay that price, that change will hard to come back.
Sure.
Right? And so really, more than anything else, that's what I'm starting to value in myself, in the team, in everyone we bring on board, is can you stick through it when it goes hard and wrong and difficult, right? And you'll have to keep changing paths, tack, details, models, all of that.
Of course, yeah.
But the larger persistence towards the vision, towards the cause, through those dark days,
right?
I think that is a very difficult quality, and I feel grateful to have in some way lived it, but I feel very, very privileged to have a team that lives it every day.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Appreciate you taking out the time. Thanks again. Thank you.
Hello, welcome in the learning exhibition. Today I spoke in measurement time. You show me the time, I tell you exact time.
Show me. Show me.